Hello, everybody. Welcome to season 2 of the Vamily Show here, the very awesome family show. Um, and today I have my guest, Karen Ford, with me. You are the author of many books, but you have two that you sent the links for me to Money Matters
Yes.
and Just Do It for real estate investing made simple.
Yes.
And how long have you been an author of books?
Just about 3 years, actually. 3 years. Yeah. Taking a break from it right now.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine it's a tough thing to do. Like, did you how long was it for the first book? Was that obviously probably took the longest out of all of them because you probably had the idea for a while for it.
It did, and I've never written a book before. So the first one took me probably longer than usual, perhaps. I don't know how long it's supposed to take someone to write a book, but I think I worked on it diligently for about 3 or 4 months before it
Hmm.
was actually sent to press. So, yeah.
And you do motivational speaking as well as being a certified master financial coach.
Yes, I
And
do.
would you say those two go really hand in hand together? Like it's hard to be motivated if you're in debt and vice versa.
I would have to say they do go hand in hand. Absolutely.
And I noticed that you do like on your YouTube channel, you do like a lot of like 1 minute, 2 minute things. And so what are some of the main ones off of there that people should check out? Because I saw the one about communication and in relationships, and I have
Yes.
to agree that's really important to have happen. And one from my personal experience, eh, um, on the guy side of it, just always thought, oh, you always have to be the provider and all that kind of stuff. It's really hard for at least for me anyway to talk about what was going on. Like if I'm worried about finances in that way and to have that thing. So
Right.
I don't know how it is coming from your side, but that's just something that I had to learn. So what are some tips that you have for people when it comes to doing communication?
Well, if you're in a relationship, you're a married couple, what have you, and you're sharing the responsibilities financially, it's so very important to communicate with each other what your plans are. I mean, how disappointing or frustrating is it for you to have the debit card, your mate has a debit card, and you go to get gas and you pop it in, and it's there's nothing there because your mate used the debit card and maybe you came up short. Or you go out and spending. I mean, I coached a couple one time, and married couple, and went through the whole list of items that they had debts for, their incomes, etc., and listed all their debts. And then I said, okay, is there anything else? And the wife turned beet red and said, well, I have some credit cards he doesn't know about. And so we listed those. And then I said, okay, is there anything else? And the husband turned beet red and he said, well, I have some credit cards that she doesn't know about. So when it was all said and done, they both had credit cards together that each other knew about, but then they had credit cards that the other did not know about. And when it was all said and done, they had 86 credit cards between the two of them. Now,
Wow.
that's a really important thing to communicate with your spouse, with your mate, what have you. Communication is really important when it comes to money and finances because it's difficult to make a plan if you're not communicating with one another. So that's one thing. If you're asking about what videos on the YouTube, and the reason I only make them 1 or 2 minutes is because it's quick tips.
Hmm.
Sometimes people don't want to sit down for an hour. Maybe they don't have an hour to sit down, but they'll take a minute or two. So another
Right.
one, and I do a lot of videos on budgeting and the importance of a budget, and that budget really is not a four-letter word. That's
Right.
something to check out. And then also demolishing debt. So many people in America today have lots and lots of debt, whether it's your house, credit cards, student loans, your car payment, and what kind of debts can you have? and how much should they be? I mean, you can't have an income and your rent or your mortgage be 50% of your take-home pay. It just will not work. So a lot of tips in that respect, if you wanted to check out my YouTube, absolutely.
Right. And Justin and Christina's RV van life, they say 86 credit cards. Wow. And I have to think, like, how much energy is that person using just the logistics of keeping up with all the accounts of 86
Oh,
different cards?
it's like the shell game. You have the shell and you have the P under one of the shells and you're moving them
Yeah.
around. When they had that many credit cards, they were actually charging one credit card to pay a payment on another credit card, and actually it became a domino effect. It all came crashing down. So that's where I came in,
Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunately, or fortunately for them.
Yeah. Well, and um, and I had heard it somewhere else, but I guess the term for it, because you're talking about dominoes falling, the other direction would be doing the debt snowballing, which I've heard on like Dave Ramsey before.
Yes.
Um, so um, that's kind of using that shell game in your advantage, where you're taking down the smallest thing first.
That's right. When you come to the debt snowball, if I can take a moment and explain what that exactly is. A debt snowball is where, when you take a snowball, a very small snowball, and you start it at the top of the hill and it rolls down, it gets larger and larger and larger, but it picks up momentum. So it ends up becoming very fast. Well, that's how the debt
Mm-hmm.
snowball works. You list all of your debts from smallest to largest, and then you still make all of your minimum payments each month. But the very first debt that you want to get rid of is the one that has the smallest debt, the smallest amount on it. And then once
Right.
that's paid off, and let's say that payment was $25 a month, you're not going to pocket that $25 or spend that $25 now that that debt is gone. Now you're going to take that $25 a month, and you're going to apply it to the next debt along with its payment. So let's say the next debt you have is a credit card payment of $50 a month. Well, your first debt you got rid of, $25 a month. Now you're going to take that 25 and add it to the 50, and you're going to make $75 a month payment on that credit card until it's gone. Then once it's gone, you're not going to pocket that $75. You're going to take that $75 and you're going to apply it to the next debt along with its minimum payment. Hence,
Right.
it speeds up, it builds momentum, and you annihilate those debts much more quickly. And let's look at it like this. We're not patient people by nature. We like things quick. We can buy things on our fingertips. We've got all kinds of apps on our phone. We can buy things. There was Amazon. You could get something in a few days. And then there was Amazon Prime where you can get it in a day. And now we're so impatient. They have Amazon Now, which means you're going to get it within an hour. So by nature, we're not patient. We want things now. So for us to be able to annihilate debts, we need to see a quick win. And that's why the debt snowball is so important, because as soon as you pay off that first debt, now you feel good. Now you see, hey, this is really going to work. I got rid of a debt. And now you're motivated to stay with the program and stick with that debt snowball plan.
Right. It's just doing that one little thing.
Yes.
Just changing that one little thing, paying that one little bill off, and then you see, yeah, like you're saying, see the accomplishments in there.
That's
And
exactly right.
I was reading there on your book, because it looks like on the Money Matters book, you have a spiritual aspect on there too.
Yes.
Does it put on there? Does God want us to have money? So I'm kind of curious in your book, like how that is interwoven in there.
Oh, absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm a Christian, so I believe what the Bible says, and there are scriptures after scriptures after scriptures about how God blesses his people. I think it's in Deuteronomy 8:18 that God gives us the power to get wealth. Well, why would he give us that power and then not allow us to become wealthy? I mean, that just does not make sense. He's not schizophrenic. So,
Right.
we have to believe that, you know, he wants us to be blessed. You know, years ago, maybe not so much now, people sometimes had the mindset, well, for me to be humble, I need to be poor. Well, I understand that concept, but I've met, you know, a lot of rich people that are humble, and I've actually met some poor people that can't rub two nickels together, that are very arrogant and prideful. So that doesn't really have any, you know, an act of humility or an attitude of humility doesn't really have anything to do with how much you have or how much you don't. Yes, we can get prideful and arrogant if we have a lot of stuff, but humility is an attitude of the heart. So as long as you have your heart right, you know, and you walk in humility, God's okay with you having money. He just doesn't want money to have you. In other words, you know, if you feel impressed to give to that single mom down the street who's working 2 jobs, has 3 kids, and is having a struggling time to make ends meet, and you just say, well, no, I'm not going to do it, you know, and you're not willing to give and help her out, then, you know, God might not want to bless you more than what you are right now, because you're holding on to something that he wants you to help someone with. That doesn't mean God doesn't want us to have vacations. It doesn't mean that God doesn't want us to have a retirement plan or savings account or anything like that. He wants us to be wise with our money. And we look at the ant. He says in Proverbs, look at the ant. They plan in summertime for winter. So yes, God does want us to plan and save and that kind of thing, because winter is going to come. So yes, he wants us to plan. He's okay with us having things. He really, really is. He just doesn't want to have things have us. And so we need to be willing to share. We need to be willing to help our fellow man, our neighbor, etc. And actually, don't you feel good when you help someone out? Don't you just feel good that you're able to give to someone who has a need? I surely do. It makes me feel really good to help someone.
Yeah, and then having the resources to be able to do that helps out a lot with being able to do that as well.
That's exactly right. You know, I heard someone say, well, God wants me to be poor. And I say, okay, here's the problem with that. If you're poor or you only have enough for you, then you can't help anybody. So God really is an abundant God, and he wants us to have more than enough so that we not only have enough for us, but also that so we can help other people as well.
Mm-hmm. And I've had a lot of things happen in my life, so I have empathy for a lot of people, and I've been poor a lot of my life. So that's one thing that I think will help keep me humble as I become more successful, because I already have the experience from being there and wanting to help people that are in the same position. And,
well, you can empathize with people that are in that position, right? So Yeah, it helps a lot. And Computer Chick Productions, she says, it took me years to get my credit up to 800 from where it was 500 years ago. Around 500, I guess, and then years ago. But and did it without bankruptcy. That's awesome.
That's hard to do for a lot of people. So
that's great. I applaud you for not going and filing bankruptcy. That's huge. Actually, I don't know if you're aware of this, but Dave Ramsey years ago, when he was actually very successful and had a lot of real estate investments and became wealthy by the world standards. And long story short, the bank that he had all those mortgages with changed hands, and they called his notes. And that's a lesson learned. Look at the fine print on your mortgage. They can call your note at any given time if you didn't already know that. But they called his notes because they thought, wow, this guy's 25, 26 years old. Why did we loan him all this money? And so they called his notes, and he didn't have the money in the bank to take care of it. So he ended up having to declare bankruptcy. And of course, he became very depressed and down about it. And he started looking in, the Bible to find out, how am I supposed to handle money? And started applying those biblical principles. And long story short, he dug his way out of that, of course, with God's help. But, even after he declared bankruptcy, a lot of people don't know this about Dave Ramsey, but he paid all that money back. So that to me is huge. That shows his integrity and character. Yes, he did file bankruptcy, but then when he made it, he paid all that money back. That is huge. That's
Yep.
huge. Yeah.
Yep. That's a big thing to be able to do,
Yes, it
and
is.
just so he can make it right. But yeah, there's a lot of things like that that I've kind of come to learn, and I've talked to other people about it because, and you'll kind of understand better too. Um, Not having debt allows you to free up what you do for a living and what you do for with your time. And when you
Mhm.
look at, they teach you in economics, supply and demand is what's supposed to have the value of things, right? Well,
Right.
there's nothing more limited than your time on this earth, and you don't know how much you have, but it's a
That's
limited
true.
supply. And then when you start out, they throw you into a world where they say, "Hey, sell it to me for as cheap as I can get it for. Sell me an hour of your time for as cheap as you can
Right.
get it for." And then
Right.
you get kept there by debt. So why do you think there isn't more in schools education on credit and debt and national financial system, which is something that everybody should have a good education on?
I absolutely agree with you wholeheartedly. And to answer your question, I have no idea why they took that out of the school system. I can remember, of course, I'm older now. I'm 57. Yeah, I had to think about that for a moment. Years ago, I learned how to balance a checkbook. We learned some things in home economics on how to run a household, how much things should cost, how do you budget. And my understanding is in today's school system, they don't teach that. And that is really unfortunate for kids in school today because unless their parents are teaching them, and sometimes parents don't even know how to properly do that. It's
Mm-hmm.
really unfortunate. So it's important to listen to podcasts like this, to read great books, and really, get the information into them some way, somehow. If it's not in the public school system, and mom and dad, let's face it, a lot of times mom and dads are working, both of them, and they don't maybe have the time to do it, don't want to take the time to do it. They're tired, or maybe they don't really know how to. So it's
Mm-hmm.
important that we put things in their hands or in their iPod Nano, for them to listen to. So very important. That's something that I'm hoping comes back into the educational system.
Yeah, and it's it's just really crazy to think about, especially from the age I am now. Like, okay, you're 18 here, you can sign up for student loans of hundreds of thousands of
Right.
dollars now, and that's more than it goes up all the time, but that's more than even when I was in school. It was
Sure.
maybe 50,000, 60,000. Now it's hundreds of thousands for the same education,
Right.
and and they they're not kids don't even understand, like, you can't get bankruptcy out of student loans. There's no getting out of
No, you
those.
can't.
It's like the ultimate
No,
bondage of debt that there is, more than
that's
a
so
house, more
true.
than a business. Like, you can start a
Right.
business, take $1 million in debt, and go bankrupt, and you don't know it. But if you go to school to try to learn something, you're stuck with it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so
No, and some people don't understand that. I mean, if at all possible, I tell people, oh, please don't claim bankruptcy. I mean, we'll work together, et cetera, but don't do it. I mean, because it just sticks with you. It's a horrible thing to have on your record.
yeah.
Um, but when it comes to student loans, even if the person does file bankruptcy, those student loans are not in the bankruptcy. You have to pay those back. So it's so very important that people take notice of, what they're borrowing and what they're
Mhm.
borrowing the money for and what it's going to be used for. So very important.
Yeah, yeah. Especially, if you're gonna borrow that much money, make sure it's some career that's gonna, or some course or major that's gonna transfer into a multitude of careers if you can, instead of just one.
Right. That's exactly
Yeah,
right. Yes.
yeah. And computer check productions, she still has her student loans, and furloughed, and but she still pays interest at $40 a month, and that's the thing. Like, yeah, it's one of the easiest to get loans, but the one that you can't get rid of. It's
Right.
crazy, that amount of debt.
Mm-hmm.
And what would you suggest for, because I saw that you have your husband, Joe, and then you got 3 kids. So what would you suggest for couples when they're first getting together, like how to either combine funds or deal with talking about funds as you start to get with somebody or be together with somebody, going from separate um, finances to combined?
That's a great question. When someone is, they're in a relationship and they want to combine their money together, it's so very important, first of all, to find out how do they manage money if you don't already know. And opposites attract. So if you are a saver, your mate or the person that you are in a relationship with is probably a spender, or vice versa. If you're a spender, they're probably a saver. It's not always that way. I have met several couples that both are savers or both are spenders. But
Mm-hmm.
looking at it from that perspective, you have to know how they function with money. Do they respect money? Do they just throw money in their purse or their wallet and they have no idea how much is in there? Some
Right.
people will know exactly how much money is in their wallet, down to the penny. And so, that's okay. I mean, it's important that we understand each other, just like in every other aspect of a relationship. How will you operate the home? Will both of you be taking care of utilities, the mortgage payments, et cetera? Or are you going to keep it separate? Now, if you're married, I actually encourage you to bring it all together, simply because you're married. And so I do encourage that. But you need to have those financial conversations. Does he want to go out to eat, 10 times a month? And you're thinking, whoa, no, I don't want to spend all that, maybe once a month. So you have to have those discussions. Are you going to take a vacation? Do you want to just, go somewhere that's just 3 hours away? Or are you going to fly to Aruba and spend a bunch of money on that kind of vacation? So you have to have these money conversations to find out how each other views money. And of course, everybody's view is going to be different because we were raised differently. I'm one of 7 kids. So if you're an only child, maybe you got everything that you asked for. So all of those aspects of how you were raised and how you think about money all play an important part in the relationship. So you must talk about it for sure.
Yeah. I'm one of 7 kids as well. And so I understand how that is. Well, it's not even when you get older, like it's not even so much the financial thing. You just realize how much different attention is for when you have a family that's that large versus when it's not. And then you learn how that affects you and makes you, whatever. Because I notice a lot of people that have a big family, a lot of them end up doing entertaining stuff because as a kid you're trying to get attention, so you're just naturally, and then you're always performing in front of a crowd because you got that many of them in your family in the first
place. Right. True.
So has there been somebody that came to you that you just realized had they been taught differently, they would have not made so many missteps in their finances? Like they would have been fine with the income they had and everything, but they just made bad missteps that education would have helped them with?
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes when I'm coaching couples or individuals, it's not that they don't have enough income. In fact, I'd say 95% of the time when I'm coaching folks in their finances, it's not that they don't make enough income. It's the mismanagement of the income. Maybe they bought a car that the payment, is too high for them, but they wanted it. Or maybe folks have, got into some credit card debt because they went to that department store and the cashier said, listen, we'll give you 30% off today if you take out a credit card. You take it thinking you're going to cancel it when it comes in the mail. And most people don't cancel that credit card when it comes in the mail. So there's lots of different reasons why people get into that situation. But I would say most of the time it's not because of not enough income. It has to do with the mismanagement of the income for whatever that reason. And then sometimes I've coached people that they had a job change with this COVID that's occurring right now. Some people's income has changed. It's dropped. So they were not prepared for that change in income. So lots of things can play a part in that aspect of financial situation. But I would say most of the time it's mismanagement of the income that they have.
Right. Yeah, that's something that I've learned over the years is just have to learn to manage your own income better.
Right.
And then once you do that, you can start to basically whatever you would pay for a payment on something, if you just start paying that payment to yourself, then you'll have the cost of whatever it is plus interest. So now you've saved interest in your account for yourself too.
That's right.
Yeah, that's why I try to tell anybody that's younger, like, avoid debt as much as you can,
Right.
Because it's just, especially when you're younger, it just limits your options to do what you want to do in life.
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
And on the real estate side, I kind of wanted to ask you, because I've been looking at wanting to do land and things like that.
Oh yeah.
Is auctions the way to go? Like the tax foreclosure auctions, is that a good place to get into real estate?
Absolutely. I've bought houses, from a realtor. I've bought houses on foreclosure. I've bought houses at an auction house where the owner pays the auctioneer to sell their house for them. But I think what you're talking about, which is my most favorite, is the state auditor office auction. And for those listening and watching right now, I want to explain that to you. Every state in the continental U.S. has a state auditor office. And what happens is when people don't pay their property taxes, their real estate taxes on a particular parcel of land or a house, what have you, they don't pay taxes. The state auditor office ends up acquiring those properties. Well, they're not in the business of real estate. So what they end up doing is they end up selling those properties. Now, in the state in which I live, which is West Virginia, they hold an auction every year. It may differ in your state, but you can check with your state auditor office. And how that works is they'll have a list on their website about a month before the auction in your particular county, because it's not statewide. They hold these auctions on various days in the various counties. And so you get a list, you can print it off, and then the day of the auction, you have an opportunity to bid on those properties. But I also encourage folks, don't bid on properties that you have not seen and checked out. Hence the reason why you need to go on their website, print off the list, and go visibly look at the properties to see what kind of condition they're in. And then you can make a decision on whether you're going to bid on them or not. And so I've bought properties for as low as $10. I've paid thousands of dollars for properties. And what happens is there's a process involved before you get the deed. But then once you get the deed, then you can set foot on the property. If there's a house or a building on it, then you can go in and you can decide, are you going to clean it up and sell it and let somebody else flip it? Or are you going to clean it up and do everything that's necessary so that you can flip it yourself? But real estate is a great way to make money. It is so wonderful, to buy and sell. And one great thing with real estate is if you buy a property and you think, okay, I've bought 5 properties and 3 of these I'm going to flip, but I'm not going to have time to flip these other 2. I'll just clean them up just a little bit, and then I'll sell them. I'll still make a profit, but I'll sell them low enough where somebody's going to jump on it like a frog on a fly, and I want to make my money, but then they're also going to have a great property to fix up and live in themselves or fix up and flip. So it's a win-win situation.
Yep. and we were talking the debt on mortgages too. This is something like this. Like that's 1 percentage point in his interest rate difference. Papa Drew's RV. He refinanced it, and he said a crap ton more money, and he was shocked. Like just that 1 percentage point is can be hundreds of thousands of dollars on a
Oh,
mortgage,
absolutely.
depending on the
Yes.
mortgage.
Yes.
And what would you say? Would you say if you have to, real estate's one of the things that is all right to use debt on?
I would say, if you're going to go through the state auditor office, then I would check into that, because you may not need to get a mortgage for that, because on
Right.
the auction, you're going to pay for it.
Right.
But you would have to check your financial situation, your income, and see what you can appropriately afford, when it comes to becoming a real estate investor. And make sure you know what you're purchasing. And that's why I really encourage folks to listen to podcasts like this. And again, my book, You Can Do It. That is a great book on real estate investing, and it teaches you anything from buying, selling, renting, flipping, the whole 9 yards. And so that's very important to, grab a hold of as much knowledge as you can, so you can make a proper decision on what property to buy, how much you're going to spend, etc. Yeah.
And I noticed YouTube was a great place to learn stuff like that. Like you have stuff on your channel about that. But
Yes.
even just learning the stuff, you'll be in a better position just in life in general, because stuff
Absolutely.
like the financial stuff will come up throughout your life. It doesn't
That's
just happen
true.
once. You'll know what you're looking at right away.
That's right. It's an ongoing thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's always constantly ongoing with that, for sure. What would you say the first step is for somebody that's out there? Oh, and Miss Southern Belle makes a good point on this one too.
Okay.
People that are discuss people that are dead, to make sure you go through probate court and make sure your parents put their house in a will and have a will.
Okay. Now, when it comes to buying properties from a state auditor auction, let's say the person maybe is dead, or they, whatever. There is a process involved where the relatives have an opportunity to redeem that property, and of course you would get your money back. But that's a great point that she made there. Absolutely. You don't necessarily need to go through probate court when someone is deceased. But if you buy a property through the state auditor auction, there is a process to make sure any of the descendants have an opportunity to redeem that property, to buy that property back, at which point you would get your money back. Absolutely.
Yep.
Good point.
Yep. I think she's also discussing too, making sure like your parent stuff is set financially as well, so that if they're gone, then you don't have to.
That's right.
Worry about a lot of that stuff. You'll have a better guidance.
Absolutely, that's a good point.
Yeah. And do you have any other books of yours that you think people should take a look at?
Sure. Well, the first one is Money Matters, and that book is all encompassing. I talk about budget, debt demolition, building wealth, from whether you're setting up a retirement plan or purchasing stocks, or there is a chapter on real estate investing. And then there's also a chapter on your mind. In other words, is it really that important to have the right thoughts and speak the right words when it comes to money? And absolutely, it's so very important. So if you want an all-encompassing book, that would be Money Matters. Another book I would encourage is, if you're interested in the real estate game, the book You Can Do It. And then another book, which is kind of a mini book, is called Money Nuggets. And that Money Nuggets book is just quotes about money to get you to think, what do you really think about money? Where are your thoughts? Because, thoughts become words, words become actions, actions become habits, and habits become character. So we are where we are today because of the thoughts that we thought yesterday or a year ago. And so I know sometimes people think, wow, that's really out there. But yes, words are so very powerful and thoughts are so very powerful as well.
Yeah, they're just, it's kind of amazing how powerful the mind can be in changing your
So true.
perception. And I told people on here, like, until I got out of depression, until I changed my mindset, I
Yes.
wasn't hearing certain messages the right way because
Right.
there's a different filter of it coming through.
Right.
Um, and were you always good with money, or is this something that you had to learn over
Well, it's
time?
something that oh, that's, yeah, it's something I had to learn. But, I had a friend tell me several years ago, Karen, you're really good with numbers and you're really good with money. I think you ought to go get some more training in that. And so I did. I'm actually a registered nurse, if you can believe it. But I haven't
Wow.
practiced as a nurse for several years, many years actually. And I really believe that, as a nurse, I help people get healthy physically. But as a
Mhm.
master financial coach, I help people get healthy financially. And that's just so very important. But there's a passion that ignited within me because I'm still helping people. And, think about it. Everybody needs money. I mean, you have to
Yep.
have money to live. So I've never run into anybody to tell me I don't need any more money or, oh, no, thank you, I don't want any more money. Everybody needs money because you have to have money to live. And so I feel like if I can help people take control of their money, take control of their financial situation, then that's a win for me and it's a win for them. And let's face it, you can win with money. It doesn't matter how much debt you have. There is a way out of debt. It doesn't matter how much debt you have, no matter how bad your financial situation looks, you can get out of it. If you got in it, you can get out of it. It's doable.
Right. Just a little bit at a time, and you can get there.
That's right.
Um, so that's I always find this happens over and over again, but just that one person saying, "Oh, you're good with numbers and you should do that." If you go
Yeah.
back in time and told yourself, "Hey, if you listen to her, you'll have all these books and you'll be doing all this stuff," would you have believed yourself that that's where it would lead
No.
you if you just learned numbers?
No, I would not. No. No, absolutely not. I would have never guessed this, honestly. Would have never guessed it. But I certainly enjoy it.
Right,
Thoroughly
right.
enjoy it.
And it's how that's how those thoughts and like you're saying, words can change things so much. Just
Yes.
like happened with you, Um, Miss Southern Belle wants to know what is the place. Uh, pop it up here. What is a
Okay.
place to drop money and it's safe and not pay taxes but once on it?
What is a place to drop money and it's safe and not pay taxes but once? I'm not
Probably a
quite
safe
sure.
invest. Probably a safe
Oh, well,
investment, and then you don't
yeah.
have taxes on it all the time.
Well, if you're preparing for retirement, I would recommend some type of an IRA and a Roth IRA. Listen, you're not going to get around paying taxes. Let's just face that. Uncle Sam's going to get his money. So you can either, on a retirement plan, you're either going to pay taxes on it when you withdraw it, whether that's just a traditional IRA. You put money in it, money in it, money in it. And when it's time to take it out at retirement, you're going to pay taxes on it. However, if you try and decide to do a Roth IRA, that means you pay taxes on it on the front end. So let's say you're 30 years old and you invest in a Roth IRA and you put so much money in it every single month, right? There's taxes paid on it as you put the money in on the front end of a Roth IRA. Well, then when you reach the appropriate retirement plan or retirement age where you can withdraw, then you're not going to get taxed on it because it's a Roth IRA where you're paying taxes on it on the front end. And
Right.
so that's a great way if you don't want to pay taxes continually. on money. And of course, I'm an avid stock investor as well, but you're going to end up paying taxes on that. But I enjoy that. So you're really not going to get around that. You pay taxes on gas. You pay taxes on a hotel. You pay taxes when you go to the grocery store. I mean, there's a variety of places that you pay taxes. But I think what she may be talking about is some type of an investment. And if we're talking retirement, then I would recommend a Roth IRA.
Mm-hmm. And then Papa Drew, he got his condo for $400,000, and
Okay.
it's increasing in value right now. And it'll probably, he says, maybe 1.5 million one day. But that's another way that you can make
Right.
money on your property is renting it. So we rent it for $3,500, and his
Yep.
payment's $2,700.
Yeah. Rentals are great.
Right, right. That's another way of why real estate's a good way to invest. And my grandpa did that back in the day, and so he was all right in retirement because he had the rental income coming in from his properties that he had.
Rental income is great.
So
the key with rental income is to have a really good lease and a great renter. Yeah.
Right, right. What are some quick things that people can do right now to start being better in their budget? Like, what are some areas that people forget to look at that they spend money on?
Okay. Well, one area, first of all, jot down all the things that you pay for. All of your utilities, how much each one is, your rent payment or your mortgage payment. If you have a car payment, how much gas do you use each month, your groceries, write it all down, all of it. Car insurance, all of it. And then what you're going to do is you're going to check how much are you eating out. Restaurants is a huge one for so many people because it's, your nickel and diming. A lot of times you think, well, that's only, $5 or $20 or whatever, but that can add up if you do it enough times in that month. I coached a young couple one time, and it was a husband and a wife and a 3-year-old. I mean, how much can a 3-year-old eat, right? And so we sat down, we went over all of the things that we knew that they had to pay each month. And then I said, okay, how much do you do? First of all, I said, do you do meal planning? No. I said, okay, do you have a set day that you go to the grocery store, like once a week or anything? No. I said, okay, let's start with square one then. How often do you go to the grocery store? Well, we go to the grocery store every 2 or 3 days. Okay, how much do you spend? And then I said, do you eat out? Do you go to the restaurant? Yes. How often? We go to the restaurant, once a week, and this is how much it costs. Okay. Do you brown bag your lunch to work, or what do you do? No, we eat in the cafeteria every day. Okay. This family of 3, husband, wife, 3-year-old child, they were spending $1,500 a month on food between drive-through fast food, eating in the cafeteria every day at work, eating out at the restaurant once a week, and going to the grocery store every 2 or 3 days. Okay, so it was shocking to them. They had no idea they were spending that much. So they wanted to change. And so we came up with, listen, it's important to do a meal plan. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to take you hours. Do the same meal plan every 2 weeks, pasta one night, roast another night, whatever it is that you like, do a meal plan. So when you go to the grocery store once a week or once every 2 weeks, you have a grocery list. Go to the grocery store, get the things on your list. Here's point number 1. Only buy the things that are on your list. Don't go to the grocery store when you're hungry. You will end up throwing things in that grocery cart that were not on your list if you go to the grocery store hungry. How many of you have done that? I've done that. So buy what's on your list, do a meal plan, and then they decided they were going to go to the restaurant once a month. And they decided that they were going to begin brown bagging their lunch when they went to work. That means they're going to take their lunch. And the only day they would eat in the cafeteria at work was on a Friday at the end of the week. They cut their grocery bill down to $600 a month. So they had an extra $900 they could put in an investment, in a savings, what have you. So food is a big item for people to look at in their budget. Here's something else to look at in your budget. I spoke with a young man, coaching a young man one time, and his income was good, his bills were good, but I thought, man, where is all this money going? And I just looked at him and I said, do you drink coffee? And he said, yeah. And I said, do you make it at home? He said, no. I said, aha. I said, okay, where do you go? And he says, well, I drive through, and he named the establishment, to get his coffee every day on his way to work. Wow. I said, how many days a week do you work? 5 days. How much does that coffee cost you each day? And he told me he was spending $350 a month on coffee. He didn't realize it. So he thought, okay, I need to change things. So he decided he was going to make coffee at home and buy that specialty coffee, that specialty cup of coffee once a week on a Friday at the end of the work week. That's another big thing for folks. And then convenience stores. You know that convenience costs. I'll say that again. Convenience costs. How many times maybe you stop at a store, you're hot, you stop and you get that bottle of water you pay $1.99 for. I can go home and get it out of my sink, that's going to cost pennies, right? Or out of my filtered refrigerator. I'm not saying you can't have bottled water. I'm not saying that. But convenience costs. You go in there and buy a bottle of pop, a bag of chips, or a bottle of pop and a candy bar. Convenience costs. So stopping at the convenience store, maybe you're tired at the end of the day. You want to go home and you're too tired to cook and you drive through a fast food. Listen, if you do meal planning, you can throw that roast and potatoes in a pot, put it in the oven at 250 at the beginning before you leave for work. 8 hours later, you come home, your house smells great. That roast and potatoes is done, and you didn't have to labor over the meal. Crock pot cooking is another great way if you don't want to come home and prepare a meal after a long day at work. You can put the things in the crock pot, put it on low at the beginning before you leave for work. When you come home, it's done. And then you can grab your cup of coffee or glass of iced tea, sit down to a great meal, and you didn't have to labor over that meal. I can remember growing up and on Saturdays, my mom, she did huge meal planning because there were 9 of us, my mom and dad and 7 kids. So she'd get up on a Saturday, she would take 2 hours. She'd throw the things in a pot to make a big vat of spaghetti sauce. She'd put a meatloaf together, but she didn't put it in the oven. She put it in a casserole dish with cover it with the glass lid, put it in the freezer. She'd, cut up a chicken, have that ready so it could be, put it in another casserole dish with a glass lid, put it in the freezer. And then our role as children, when we got home, she'd have a note. Take the meatloaf out of the freezer at 4 o'clock. Put it in the oven at 350 degrees at 4:30. It was already ready. So when she got home from work and Dad got home from work, the meatloaf was done. There's lots of different things that you can do for meal planning so you're not laboring. Put your kids to work too if they're age appropriate and mature enough. They can peel potatoes. Come on now. They can do certain things depending on, again, their age, their maturity level. They can put something in the oven for you, that kind of a thing. And they can set the table. There's lots of things they can do so that you don't have to come home and do all of that.
Yeah. And Computer Chick Production, she made a kind of a good point. She found cheaper car insurance than what she was paying and switched insurance providers. So is that probably a next step in looking at that budget, is to see how to cut costs of your bills?
Absolutely. Listen, there's a lot of insurance companies out there, whether it's your home, whether it's your vehicles. Start calling all of those insurance companies. Now compare apples with apples. You have to give them the policy that you presently have and tell them, this is the policy I have. This is the policy that I want with you. What's the cost with you? You don't compare apples with oranges. You got to compare the exact same policy that you have so you can get an idea. Are they higher? Are they lower? Are they the same? And that's how you're going to know. Great point that you just asked about the insurance. Great point.
Right. And what are some things that the people usually that you've seen they overspend on commonly? Is it vehicles? Is it clothing? Like what are some things?
Vehicles, I would say, would be the number one. Sometimes people they end up going to the dealership, they see the truck they want, the car they want, and they got to have it. And they're not looking at the overall cost of the vehicle, because the salesperson is very smart and they say, well, this is what your monthly payment would be. They're not selling you on the price of the vehicle, they're selling you on the payment of the vehicle. But more times than not, people think, oh, okay, well, it's only $100 more than what I should spend. And they do it. And then they end up in over their head. Listen, if at all possible, don't have a vehicle payment, because it's going to
Right.
cost you in the long run. So if you have a vehicle right now, let's just say you don't have a payment on it. Pretend like you have a payment on it. Let's pretend you want a car and it's going to cost you $350 a month, right, to get that car. Start putting that $350 a month in an account marked car. Pay yourself. Put it in a savings account. Don't touch it. And then do that every month after month, just as if you have a car payment. And then before you know it, you're going to be able to trade your car in and pay for a car with cash. And don't buy new. No, 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 no. It's going to drop in value as soon as you drive it off that lot. Get a year or 2-year-old car. And it'll still have a warranty on it. Let somebody else take that depreciating value. And if you have a car payment right now, do what you're doing. And when it's paid off, don't get the new car itch. Stay away from those dealerships, because they'll put you in a car and have you smell that new car smell. And before you know it, you're going to be signing your name on the dotted line. Stay away from the dealership, even though you would love to have a new car. Once your car is paid off, keep making that payment as if you still have it, but pay yourself in an account marked car. That way you can trade and not have a car payment, but you're paying yourself.
Yeah, and I would also look at that too, is if that's the kind of car you want and the payment it's going to be, you can see if you can if that's something that you can even handle in your budget too,
That's right.
without having
Yeah.
that money be gone to the car payment. You still at least have the money in case an emergency comes up or anything like that.
Right. That's exactly right.
Well, I do want to thank you for being here today.
Absolutely.
And you have KarenFord.com, correct?
.org.
Or is it .org?
KarenFord.org.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can get all your stuff there. And it's
Or Amazon.
right. And
Yes.
is it what's the name of the YouTube channel again? I think it's
I beg your pardon?
the name of your YouTube channel.
Oh, KBF Money Managing.
Okay, KBF Money Management.
KBF Money Managing.
Awesome. Yeah, go check her out there, guys. I'm gonna play the outro video, and I'll be right back with you. But I'll see you guys later. Stop waiting for life to happen and make it happen, guys.